In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how we can create this counter app in React Native. As you can see, we have two views and we have two buttons. When we click on decrease, the counter goes down, of course. And if we click on increase, the counter is going to go up. So I'm going to be showing you how we can use state to manage the UI and how we can update it to show the results on the screen. So it's a very good starter project for getting started with React Native. And we also have the total taps down here, so we can keep track of how many taps we wasted on this app. But to get started, as always, you want to go ahead and create a blank project in Expo. But once you have your project up and running and you scan the QR code, you should end up with something similar to this screen. And the very first thing we're going to do is get started with the imports and add the button. Then we need to convert this default function to a class so that we can render it and we can add some state. So export default class app, which extends react.component, because this whole thing is going to turn into a component. And there's only one method that is absolutely required, and that is the render method. So we type in render and we create a block, and inside that block we insert the return. Now the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and create the state, which just holds the values of our app during the execution. So here we're going to go ahead and type in value is going to be set initially to 0, and we also want to update the total taps. So total taps is going to be set initially to 0. Then we have to go ahead and create the functions that will increment and decrement the value. So the first function we'll create is increment value, which is going to equal an empty function like that. And we need to call this dot set state so we can update the state, followed by parentheses and the curly brackets. The first thing inside here we have to type is our value, which we want to update to this dot state dot value plus 1. So it's going to grab this value and update it by 1. Then we're going to do the same thing for the total taps. So total taps is going to equal this dot state dot total taps plus 1. And below that, we're going to go ahead and log this so we can understand what's going on. So value plus this dot state dot value plus 1. Then of course, the easiest part about this is we can just copy it and paste it here. So we can type in decrement value, and all we have to do is change this to -1, -1, and -1. Then we need to take care of the UI, which is going to display this information. So the first thing we'll do is change the first text to 0, and we'll give it a style. So style is going to equal two curly brackets, because we are going to use the inline React CSS editor. So font size is going to be set to 60, and the margin bottom is going to be set to -20. Then we can just go ahead and copy and paste this. The next thing we want to do is change the font size to 12. We're going to give this a padding of 20, and we want to set the color to gray. And here we'll just type the placeholder of total taps. And right below the status bar, we're going to go ahead and create a view, and it's going to hold this style, which is going to be a flex direction, and we're going to set that to row, so that the buttons are right next to each other. And inside here, we'll go ahead and insert a button with an end tag like that. And we will provide an onPress method, which is going to equal this dot decrement value. And we should provide a title, which is going to say decrease. Then we're going to go ahead and create a text block. And we're just going to enter 3 empty spaces to give it some space between the first button and the second button, because unfortunately the button provides us with very little customization, which means we can't add padding or a margin or anything else. It's such a basic component that doesn't allow us to customize it, so we have to work with this workaround, which is a space between the button. And we can copy this button and place it right under the text, except this time we need to increment the value and type in increase. Now let's go ahead and save and see what happens to our UI. So as you noticed, we're going to have this UI right here, that when we click on decrease, we will get a console log that says -1. And when we click on increase, it's going to increment the value. So the functionality of the app is working perfectly. What's missing now is making sure the UI updates to reflect upon our function changes. So it's actually pretty simple to insert our changes. All we have to do is create these curly brackets and refer to this dot state dot value for the first one, and for the second one we have to do something very similar. So we're going to add the curly brackets and type in total tabs plus this dot state dot total tabs. And now when we click on save, you're going to notice it's going to say 0 here and 0 here, except this time when we click on these buttons, it's going to update what we wrote over here. Except there is one bug, and that is that our total tabs is just copying what we wrote for the counter, and that is because on my decrement value function, this was supposed to be a plus, because no matter what we click on, we wanted to increment the counter. So we'll change that to a plus and rerun the program. Now when we click on increase or decrease, the total counter is going to always increment, while the main counter is going to go up and down depending on the buttons we click on. So that was actually all it took to make this very simple increment counter. But with that being said, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.